Welcome back. So let's talk about these different delete behaviors we have available inside the system right now. We have the cascade delete. We already checked that one out where it deletes everything that's related to each other. We also have a delete for no action. Now the no action is actually saying, we also tried that we shouldn't do anything. But even though we say we don't want to do anything, we might get an exception back here if we can't actually set the value to null. So it's pretty much the same as the restrict and the set null in our case. So these three right here, in my mind, these three delete behaviors are pretty much the same with the SQLite database. Now they might be different depending on the database you're using, but for SQLite, it doesn't matter which one you pick. And if you read further, you can see they are a little bit different when we're talking about migration. These two seem to be the exact same thing, but this guy down here is a little bit different when we talk about migration. I'm not going to cover migration, so in my case, it really doesn't matter which one I picked. So I'm going to pick the one called set null this lesson and show you what would actually happen if we set the restriction, the delete behavior to set null. Jump back to our code right here, and we'll just go and call that set null right here in actions. So set null. And now we should be able to actually set the value to null. But there's a small problem, and that is the set null is pretty much the same as no action. So if I try right now and run the code, you'll see I still get an exception. Let's just try and run the code right here, jump into Swagger, and see what actually happens if we execute that delete for the genre. Trust me, the same genres are there, so I don't want to show you that right now. I'll just do the execute. And here you'll see now we get the exception back again, because we're still not allowed, even though we ask it to set null, we are not allowed to set an int value to null. That's just not allowed. So we have to explain the int value is nullable. Now, let's try and figure out how we do that. So we'll jump back to code. But before we do, I want to show you something, because you just changed your database schema. If you allow this to be nullable, instead of having a video should have one genre, you actually change your schema into saying it's allowed to have 0 to 1 genre. So it's very important you know what you're doing here. If you allow this set null, you say to the system, it's okay, a video can have 0 to 1 genres, which means that now this can actually be a null value right here, so we don't have a genre associated with the video. And that might cause different things in your code, so as long as you know what you're doing, perfectly fine. But it pretty much means that a video can be there without a genre, and we get this null to 1 relation instead of just a 1 relation. So let's jump into the code and see how we can actually generate this new 0 to 1 relation instead of the old 1 relation. What we have to do is, again, we have the set null ready, but we have to do one more thing. We have to go into the video entity and set a question mark right here inside the genre ID. Now this makes an int value, nullable. Okay, so this makes it nullable, so we can set it to null now. Again, notice right here when we built the table before the old schema, it said genre ID is an int that's not nullable right here, but by adding this small question mark, it's now nullable. So let's try and restart the program and see how it now builds our actual schema for the database. So we'll go back to that table right there, and now you'll notice that it says genre ID integer must be nullable. So now it can actually be set to null. Let's try and see what happens then if we go back to Swagger and just execute this code now, because now we just allowed the system to set a genre to null, even though it has a video that relates to it. So I'll go and just do an ID of 1 right here and execute it, and boom, it allows me to delete that genre now, even though it had a relation to a video. And what it actually did, I can't show you that right now, but I'll add that next video, is actually when you go and get these videos back now, you'll notice that it won't fail, the genre will just be null. But to be honest, it was that before, like this before as well, so we need to kind of figure out how we can show the relation now inside our response in the get all. And that's what we're going to do next lesson. So see you next time. Bye.